The Astros got their ninth inning man, and we have some new Hall of Fame members. Let's talk about it, Will. What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 66 of Bringing the Heat. My name's Cody Pyatt, and with me, as always, the four-seam fastball co-host, Will Sism. William, dude, we were talking about it. This was like a really slow news week, and then all of a sudden, Tuesday night, Monday night, just tons of stuff to talk about on the grill. How are you doing?
Doing well, man. It's I tell you what, it's been snowy here.
Yeah, we survived the storms.
Right, we survived the winter blizzard here in the South, and it's been good. But you're right, man. The news was a little quiet for a while, and then it was like one or two things happened, and it's like boom, we've got multiple things to talk about, and we have a massive starting pitching list to deep dive as well. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
Guys, stay tuned. Get your popcorn ready, or if you're in your like morning commute, evening commute, just sit back, pay attention, two hands on the wheel, and just listen to. We're gonna dive through. We have a different way we're gonna tackle this list because there are just quite frankly so many names. We'll dive into it in a second, but before we do, let's hit the grill. Will, man, this one, I'll be honest, I thought he was going to a team in Texas, but this is not the one I thought he was going to. Houston Astros pull the trigger on Josh Hader. That's might be the second to last big fish. The Astros and the left-hander are reportedly in agreement of a 5-year, $95 million contract, $19 million annually through 2028. He can also collect an additional $1 million bonus if he wins the reliever of the award. I think it's called a Mariano Rivera Award, which is just aptly named. That's what they should call it. Full no trade clause. Dude, this is wild. They had their ninth inning guy, Ryan Presley, and I assumed they were going to roll with him. You got any thoughts on Hader to the Stros?
Man, it was. I'm with you. It was a little surprising that Houston made the big move to do this, but I tell you what, I think it makes a lot of sense, at least in the near term, like these next 2 to 3 years, when the window is still very much open with this team. I've said many, many times that I've always been surprised that Houston's never really had a left-handed reliever on these teams. And my gosh, now they have one.
Yeah.
So, I think, it's interesting that you mentioned they have Presley still. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that works. In the 8th and 9th inning, which I assume one of them will be primarily the 8th, one of them will be primarily the 9th. But I tell you what, I think the most significant thing is maybe him not signing with Texas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's almost 100%. Like the Astros played offense and defense at the same time, if that made sense, by keeping him away from Texas, which, appears to be their newest rival in the AL West. But I like the right, but I really like the move. Like I said, at least over these next 2 to 3 years, I think they're going to get a couple of really good years out of him. I'll be curious to see how they utilize him. Yeah. But I'll say this: the only downside to this is I don't love giving a closer basically $100 million. Like, I will be the first one to say that. I think Edwin Diaz is kind of an exception in a lot of ways. I still don't love it, but I think when he's healthy, is the best reliever in the game.
Yeah.
So would it be my first choice to give a closer $100 million as opposed to a position player or a starter? No.
Yeah.
But I do like the fit in Houston, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. That's the curious thing, man. They have a lot of free agents coming up next year. A lot of that core that have been running it back to the ALCS. You got guys like Bregman and Altuve who need to get paid. What about Valdez, Bramber? And then your favorite postseason batter of all time, Kyle Tucker. He needs to get...
Still looking for him.
Dude, he is, he has a tough October run, but he'll be back, baby. Let's talk about Presley for a second. I'm going to be very curious to see, because it's going to be, I'll be honest, it'll be Hader in the 9th. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
there's just no way you give this guy 95 mil. They actually
Right.
talked to Presley and asked him, like, what do you think of this? He said, let's go win. He has one more year left on his deal. Presley does. It's 14 mil. And then, we'll see. Is he going to want to go somewhere else and get paid to close games? Because he has
Yes.
had he's had tons of success. But it's different, right? I mean, you go in there for the ninth inning, 3 outs to win the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
versus seventh, eighth. Is that going to affect him at all? We'll see. I think of guys like Craig Kimbrell or a Chapman have had issues in the past. Shout out to the Pirates, by the way. I don't even have this on here,
right?
Yeah, dude, lots of news on Tuesday night. My goodness. Yeah, it's gonna be, dude. There'll be growth in the seventh, eighth, and ninth inning. They're gonna be pretty nasty.
Yeah. You also wonder, real quick, I know we need to move forward, but you also wonder, like a guy like Brian Abreu.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like a guy, at least to me, he's got closer type stuff, and he's a young guy, and you have to wonder if a young guy like him, who's done really well this past season or two, you almost think, all right, Presley's the default closer. He's got 1 year left. Then maybe it's my job, kind of thing. Yeah. But now it's like, well, crap. Now I'm probably stuck in the 7th, 8th inning for the foreseeable future now that they have Hader. So you just wonder, kind of the trickle-down effect, so to speak. You wonder if that has any effect on some of the other guys, either in a positive or negative way. But it'll be interesting to see how all those pieces fit together.
Yeah, dude. Abreu's numbers are disgusting.
Oh, he's awesome.
12.5 Ks per nine, a 1.75 ERA last year, 100 Ks. Dude, this dude's disgusting.
Yeah.
We'll move on to a very interesting ad. The Jays went out and got Yariel Rodriguez. I'm like, is that how you say his name? I'm pretty sure. I'm very excited about it, though. He's going to be pitching against our teams here. 4 years, $32 million. He's a reliever, I thought, in Japan, but they want him to be part of the rotation. And who is that a problem for?
Alek Manoah.
That's exactly right. So that's something to watch in the spring training season that's coming up. Very interesting story. He defected from Cuba, then went to Japan, then came over here for the World Baseball Classic and said, you know what? I'm going to stay here. He was actually under contract for a team in Japan. He's like, nope, I'm just going to stay here. That team actually granted his release at the end of their season. They couldn't do it before then. And so then he was free to sign with the major league team. And now he's going to Canada. So this dude is just throwing stamps in his passport. It's very exciting. We'll see what he's got. He was pretty nasty for Cuba in the World Baseball Classic. But yeah, I think right now we just need to do a deep dive on the fantasy value of Alek Manoah.
Yes.
Will's like, let's stop everything and let's knock this out. Anything on a potential fifth starter for the Jays?
It's interesting. With guys like this, you have no idea. I mean, you hear all about, like, for example, Yamamoto signing with the Dodgers, and that's probably the most high profile, international signing of our lifetime, quite honestly, other than maybe Shohei. But with a guy like this who's projected to be a fourth or fifth starter, we just have to kind of wait and see. I mean, I definitely am all for a team like the Jays getting some help to the back end of that rotation, especially considering the struggles of a guy like Manoah. But, the Jays, it just feels like the Jays need a little bit more than that. And I don't know what the Jays need other than leadership and maybe more veterans on that team. I have no idea what went wrong the last year or two, but we'll see how this plays out. But it feels to me like they need a little bit more than a fourth or fifth starter. But hey, maybe this guy will surprise and be a little bit better than what we even think.
I think if he doesn't pan out, it's a little bit like Hicks in San Francisco. Doesn't pan out, just put him in the back half of the bullpen and let him ride. Okay, Rhys Hoskins to Milwaukee. Dude, we've been clamoring for the Brewers to get a bat, and they go out and do it. I'm very happy for him. And this is the perfect deal for Rhys as well. It's a 2-year deal, $34 million, but it has an opt-out after one. So if you're following along with me, he has the opportunity to opt out after the first year if he totally crushes it and then hit free agent again for the 2025 season. So, had an ACL tear in spring training. Otherwise, he was penciled in as the first baseman and can give you 35 bops for the Phillies. But got usurped by some guy named Bryce Harper. It happens, and
he's pretty good.
he is. He's a stud, man. There's no doubt about it. But we are. I am excited. I quit saying we. I am pumped to see, because this Brewers lineup gets sneaky good, and if he has a good year, anything on Rhys to Milwaukee.
I'm kind of what you were saying. I'm happy that Rhys Hoskins has gotten a seemingly what seems to be a pretty good fit for him. Seems like a super good guy. It seemed like all of his teammates loved him in Philadelphia, and obviously had an unfortunate injury going into last year. But this feels like a really good landing spot.
Mm-hmm.
The Brewers, it feels like, have had kind of a hole at first base for a while. This definitely seems like a significant upgrade as long as he's healthy, which he should be.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I kind of like it. It's really, honestly, kind of a prove it deal. With the opt out in there, and yeah, I kind of like it. But for the Brewers, I wish they did something like this like 2 or 3 years ago. It feels like a couple of years too late for them, but
Yep.
hey, I'm good with it, especially for Rhys Hoskins. I want to see him do well and rebound, and we'll see how it plays out and how that Brewers lineup ends up shaking out.
It's weird because if you're the Brewers, like, do you just root for him to have like a really good first half and then stink, or vice versa? If he plays too well, he will price himself out easily.
Yeah.
He'll price himself out easily at Milwaukee. So,
hey, if he helps them win the division or get into the playoffs, I think it'll be all the more worth it for him.
I mean to tell you, dude. Okay, a little hit and run here on the rest of these free agent signings. I'll go ahead and throw our man Aroldis Chapman in here. It was $9.5 million for him, 1 year, to the Pittsburgh Pirates. They don't have a closer. Oh wait, David Bednar exists, so I don't understand that even at all. They'll probably flip him at the deadline for prospects. And then we got some James Paxton to the Dodgers, because why not? Dodgers are signing everybody. 1 year, $11 million. Joey Gallo to the Nationals, 1 year, $5 million. He just feels like a National. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Matt Moore back with the Angels for $9 million. And then I was very curious to hear your thoughts on this guy who came to your Rays and absolutely dominated in the second half of last year. But Robert Stevenson to the Angels on 3 year, $33 million deal. Lots of threes there. Probably looking to close. Any thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, the Angels, I don't know what they're going to do with the rest of that roster, but their bullpen's at least pretty decent. But I really like Robert Stevenson. You mentioned it. You talk about a guy who has super good stuff. He is definitely got a guy that has closer stuff. We'll see if he ends up getting the ninth inning role. We'll see how he reacts, but he's definitely got great stuff and can handle it. But it's interesting. I mean, like I said, the Angels trying to bolster the bullpen. Problem is the rest of that roster and the division that they're in.
Yeah.
And then what was the other move you mentioned before?
Matt Moore coming back, and then Joey Gallo, James Paxton.
Yeah, the Paxton deal is interesting because, I mean, you obviously saw him come back with the Red Sox, and I mean, I'll admit he was way better, at least in the first kind of half of the season last year, than I ever imagined.
Yeah.
So he's a guy that he's kind of over a year removed from the major injury now, and so I'm interested to see if he can maybe build on what he started last year and see how he does.
Yeah. I can't tell if he was like really good or it was just like, oh my gosh, someone's throwing strikes in innings for the Red Sox. It was like you look at it through a different lens. It's like, oh my gosh, it's not a AAA pitcher. This is so exciting. I'll tell you this, the Dodgers take guys like this and, make them great. And if they can't, I can only think of like one guy. Noah Syndergaard came over, and it was pretty meh. But other than that, they seem to be pretty solid. And, my question is with the Dodgers is this like first half of the season Kershaw, and then they're going to sign him back? When are they going to sign back?
That's a good point.
Not under contract, man.
Yeah.
I think it's always a foregone conclusion in my mind that he's going to come back. So I thought this was going to be his deal. Is essentially what I'm saying.
You know,
But
I know nobody wants to hear this, but I'm telling you, I would not be surprised if Clayton Kershaw retires.
that break my heart, man. He's still
Yeah,
got it. That would be Barry Sanders if I've ever. He can still do it. Everybody
yeah.
acts like he's 45. Tom Brady, he's only 35.
I know, but
Um,
the injuries are there. The velocity's been way down the last few seasons. He obviously still knows how to pitch and
yeah,
can get people out. But here's the thing, like knowing a guy at that I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, but you know that he does not want to go out how he got shelled in that D-backs playoff game. So I
that's
mean,
true.
I think if health allows, he will be back at some point, but it's interesting to see how this Dodgers team just gets fitted all together, especially with a guy like that.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Oh man, just strap in and watch what this team can do. They'll probably win 120 games and then get bounced by somebody in the first
Brewers.
round. Yeah, the Brewers. Brewers, because they have a better 3-man rotation in the division series. Oh my gosh, can't happen again, can it? Will. Last bit of news, and then we're going to dive into this monstrosity of a list. It's going to be fun, but it's monstrous. We have 3 new members to the Hall of Fame, man. Pretty exciting stuff. Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, and Joe Mauer. They round out the player class of the Hall of Fame for 2024. Jim Leyland, the manager, was also elected. So you got 4 guys there. I don't know. Anybody listening to this who doesn't know, you need 75% of the votes from the baseball writers. I think it's like 289 people have to vote yes. Each of the writers have a ballot. They can use up to 10 votes. They don't have to use them all. This was looked at as like a weaker class, but I think this were the 3 that most people had locked in. So you had Adrian Beltre, 366 votes, 95%. This first time on the ballot. Todd Helton, it was his 6th year. He had 79.7%. And then Joe Mauer, his first go around as well, 76. So just over. Dude, these are some guys who we watched growing up, which is kind of surreal. Kind of, made me feel a little old there, Will.
Yeah.
It's like son of a gun. I remember his rookie year,
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun. But Beltre, man, what a career. 3,100 hits, 447 home runs, a 286 average. Played for 4 teams, 21-year career. Anything on these guys?
Man, I just think they're all so well deserving of this. I mean, you talk about just as far as the 3 players, like 3 just franchise cornerstones of type players for many, many years. I'm super happy for Jim Leyland too. It seems like everybody loves that guy.
Yeah.
And happy he got in as well at this time. But as far as the players go, I mean, you talk about, there's probably people out there as far as Todd Helton goes that says, oh, he got to hit in Coors Field for a lot of his career. And yes, that's true.
Yeah.
But I promise you, if you watch Todd Helton play, dude, he could have hit anywhere. It didn't matter what ballpark it was. I mean,
correct.
Like Todd Helton was one of the best pure hitters, honestly, I've seen in the game in a while.
Yeah.
And then as far as Adrian Beltre, man, you want to talk about a guy who just came to work every single day, and it felt like every year he did the same thing. Like he was so consistent, so consistently great in every aspect of the game. And I just feel like even though he's a Hall of Famer, he was such an underratedly great player at the time.
Yeah, the wild thing was, he played for 21 years. I feel like the first 10 years of his career, no one would look at that and say this guy's a Hall of Famer.
Right.
And that's the cool thing about this is when you dissect it there, and then he had like this year in Boston, which I remember he was like really solid. Then he went to Texas and he was just an all-star. And he's a stud, man. Let's see. Yeah, you mentioned Helton. He played 17 years in Colorado. We're going to start penalizing people for that. I mean, that's just not fair. He had 369 home runs, a 316 average, hitting the heart of that lineup, man. Part of that magical run in 2007. And then
Yeah.
Mauer, dude, he's a Minnesota guy, born in
Yep.
Minnesota, played for the Twins his whole career.
Yep.
Storybook. I mean, you can't write this in Hollywood, dude.
Yeah.
15 years in Minnesota, had 143 home runs at 306 average. We were talking about it before we hit record. He had, I mean, it was as latest as I can remember. I think it was 09. It's the year he won the MVP. He was batting 400 in like July. It's just out of this world.
Joe Mauer is one of the best. He might be the most pure hitting catcher that I've ever seen. I mean, at least in my lifetime. I mean, what can you say? I mean, the guy, like what you said, I mean, he's almost hitting 400 2/3 of the way through the year in that year, and just an incredible player. He was homegrown from Minnesota, played his entire career there. That's cool. And Todd Helton, for those of you guys who never watched him play, I mean, the closest thing I can think of is kind of like a Freddie Freeman. Very much similar type hitter as Freddie Freeman. Had power, to basically all fields, but just a pure hitter, gap to gap. And what a just three awesome players plus one awesome manager.
Yeah. Gonna be fun, man. Yeah, I like keeping up with the Hall of Fame stuff. It's kind of interesting to see where people land. Obviously, with the steroids, everybody's got a pretty, there's a hard line there. People are going to vote for people and people who aren't. Gary Sheffield, this was his last year on the ballot. He didn't get in. He's only 63%, but everybody knows he was incredibly feared hitter in his day. Man, it's gonna be interesting. Billy Wagner next year, let's see it, buddy. 73.8. So he's got to be like mere votes away from getting the job done. Absolutely nasty. Will, you know what's really nasty is spending another second not talking about starting pitchers in this. Okay,
let's do this.
Let's do it, man. Let me set the scene. We have a list of 61 names. Will has an idea, and I think I kind of like it. We're going to break it down by ADP because otherwise, I mean, it's just too deep, team. It just is. We're going to look at the blue chips. These are the guys you're going to have to go get early, and then we're just going to kind of chunk them, okay? And the funny thing, when I made this list, I want to say two things. I could have kept going. I mean, there are literally hundreds of names that, depending on how deep your league is, you'll be diving in looking for anything. And then second thing, I made this list probably 10 days ago, so these ADPs have shifted some. We did our best to take a look and adjust the ones that were like super pertinent. And the funny thing is, you're going to listen to this, it's going to change again, but we're going to give our thoughts on all these pitchers, okay? Will, let's talk about blue chips, man. We have 8 names here highlighted in blue, and I think they give the perfect combination of both innings pitched, K per 9, and, if they're just going to go out, you know what you're going to get. Let's talk about them. Number 1, Spencer Strider, number 1 on this list, best pitcher in baseball, followed by Garrett Cole, Corbin Burns, Zach Wheeler, Kevin Gausman, Luis Castillo, Zach Gallen, Aaron Nola. Whoa. Those are some studs.
Those are some very, very good horses for sure. I would say, when it comes to this, I mean, obviously Spencer Strider is the name that you're going to hear more often than not as the first pitcher going off the board. And the primary reason for that, well, there's few reasons, but the primary reason is just the strikeouts are an outlier. He basically strikes out Ks per 9. He's basically an elite closer, but he just so happens to be a starter. If you want to look at it that way. I've said this a lot. This is basically Jacob deGrom 2.0. Just not quite the ERA and the whip that deGrom had when deGrom was really rolling. The strikeouts are every bit as much as pretty much as impressive as he was. But the only downside to Strider, at least this is just going by last year. Remember, he's only 25. He's only, been starting for about a year and a half now. But he did have a 3.8 ERA. And
Mm-hmm.
so, the downside with a guy like that is he's going to have a couple of stinkers throughout the season, and so, um, so anyways, the strikeouts they mask a lot of things. And so if you want an outlier in strikeouts, he is definitely the number one guy on the board. Underneath him, though, are a lot of guys I really like. Garrett Cole, love the Yankees or not.
Yeah.
Dude, the guy every single year just is a stud.
Yeah.
He goes out there, you can pretty much pencil him in for 200 innings or more. He's going to get over strikeout per inning. His whip's always 1 or under. He's got a 2-something ERA, and it's just like almost like people get bored with him.
Yeah.
But the guy just produces year in and year out.
Probably the highest floor of these guys.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, guys that I really, really like, though, just rounding out the list, love Zach Wheeler. I wish he pitched as well in the regular season as he did in the playoffs, but hey, can't have it all.
Yeah.
Kevin Gossman, he honestly might be the most underrated pitcher, at least in fantasy circles, over the past couple of years. The guy is a strikeout to walk machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I tell you what, like, there's a lot of people out there that really, really like Corbin Burns. He's scared me off just a little bit this past year and a half because he's had kind of like what I was saying with Strider. He's had a few outings to where it's like, all right, what's going on here? And he gets kind of shelled, but the strikeouts are still there, the innings pitched are there. And then the same with those other guys, Castillo. Zach Gallen is an emerging ace in Arizona, and then Aaron Nola, look for him to bounce back off of a little bit of a down year last year, but I think he'll be back to true form this year too.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Nola. He's a guy. Yeah, you're right. I mean, 4.46 ERA, that's not great. 1.15 WHIP, not great for where you'll be drafting him. He's the lowest on this list that we talked about so far. His ADP is 38. So you're looking at just after the beginning of the 4th round that he'll go. But if you can take him as your anchor, because he's going to give you 200 innings, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And that's probably why he's going as high as he is, and that's why we have him on our blue chip kind of section. The dude is, I mean, you can pencil him in roto leagues where you're just looking for strikeouts and wins and all that fun stuff. I mean, he's going to take care of you there for sure. You mentioned Gossman. For whatever reason, I've just never looked at that guy. I think it's because I watched him with the Orioles when he was coming up. I've never been able to look at him and say, this is a guy I want to draft. And it honestly, it burns you, man. He had 237 Ks in 185 innings. Dude is an absolute stud. Plays for a plus offense. So, his win potential is pretty high there. But yeah, just real quick running through these ADPs because I failed to. Strider, he's going to go at 14, so that's just outside the 1st round. Cole, 16. Burns, 21. And then we're going to go to the 3rd round here with Wheeler, 29. Gossman, 31. Castillo, 33. Gallen, 36. And then, of course, I said Nola, 38. So, yeah, this is these are going to be your horses. These are going to be your anchors. We're going to move on here. I'm just going to throw some chunks at you here, Will. What about George Kirby? His ADP is 47. You have Framber Valdez after him, 30-year-old, who's going to be coming up on free agency after next year. Speaking of guys going to free agency next year, Max Fried for the Braves is actually going 1 pick after Valdez, which I guess you got to pencil in the injury risk there. Logan Webb, stud for San Francisco. Pablo Lopez, Tarek Skubal off of injury. And then Blake Snell, the former Cy Young winner, or I guess the current Cy Young winner. For what team? Maybe the Angels. You talk about a guy who can go up or down in ADP. He's at 59 right now. That could go up or down depending on where he signs. Tyler Glasnow, Logan Gilbert, rounding out this section of the list. Did anybody stand out to you in particular?
It's an interesting list, that's for sure. I love George Kirby's lack of walks, but there's other things that just make me cause for pause sometimes with him. The strikeouts are kind of hit or miss with him sometimes. So, but he's just 25, plays on a really good team in Seattle. We'll see if he can kind of take the next step. That's kind of what I'm looking for out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Framber Valdez was kind of an enigma last year. He was incredibly good in a lot of starts, and then there were certain stretches of the season to where it's almost like he lost it.
Yeah.
Which was kind of frustrating for anybody who maybe had him on their teams last year for those stretches, because you expect a guy like that to be, I'm not saying every start has to be dominant, but
Well,
obviously you want to
he
try to
broke the
minimize the sneakers, right?
yeah
So,
he broke the quality start record last year. So that's
yeah,
high expectations, but that's what people are thinking.
right. So we'll see, with Framber, if he's able to, stay consistent year in and year out, which has been his MO. We'll see if that's the case in 2024. Guys that scare me a little bit is Max Fried and Tarek Skubal. I think both of those guys are really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
But they've both had some injuries over the past year, a couple of years. Um, we'll see if they can handle a full workload. I think that's honestly the biggest question with both of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Can they get to 180 innings pitched? That's kind of the barometer it feels like now.
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, then they will be great. I have no doubt about that. And then the guys who honestly are probably my favorites on this particular section of our list
Mm-hmm.
is, for two different reasons, is Logan Webb
Mm-hmm.
and Blake Snell. And these are two polar opposites. Logan Webb, if you want a guy who is not going to be elite in strikeouts, but he's going to be an elite in everything else,
Yeah.
that's your guy. The only reason Logan Webb is not a top 5 or 6 pitcher is because he doesn't strike out as many guys as those other guys who are blue chips.
Yeah.
But everything else is right in line with those guys. So he is as solid as they come. If you can get him around the 10th pitcher off the board, man, that's probably a pretty solid selection.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you what, I know that there's some people out there that don't love Blake Snell or expect him to, not do what he did last year. Guess what? He doesn't have to do what he did last year and still be really good.
Yeah.
We'll obviously see which team ends up signing him. That will play a big role in this.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I don't care where he's pitching. He's always going to rack up the strikeouts. The question with Blake Snell is, can he keep the walks to a level that's manageable? And if the answer is yes, unless your league heavily emphasizes quality starts, he is a great value pick at where he's going as of right now.
Yeah, took the words right out of my mouth, man. If you're playing quality start league, Logan Webb probably goes up a few ticks,
Yep.
and Snell might come down a little bit. Did we talk about? I don't know that we talked about it on the show, but I'm curious. Did we actually talk about it in real life? His philosophy. I was watching this interview
Yes.
when he was talking about, I got 3 balls on a guy, and it's 3-1. I'm not going to throw the ball over the plate. I'll take my chances with the next guy.
Yep.
So it's hilarious that his mentality. I mean. And it works.
It works.
I am beyond curious to know where he's going to end up, dude. It's going to be absolutely nuts. I will throw up live on this show if he goes to the Angels, because I'm just going to need like a break. I'm just going to need a break because I can't handle that. I can't handle that. Go to competitive. I'd take the Giants. I'd love to see him go pair up with Webb and who just went to Robbie Ray.
Robbie Ray.
A bunch of lefties, hard throwing lefties over there. All right, here we go. Gear in, everybody, because we made it to number 18 on the list. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, man. This seems like a pretty appropriate guy to talk about. When I originally made this list, what did I have down here? 160 ADP?
Yeah.
and it's been like 10 days, and it's come up a full 120 spots. I mean, this guy, we don't know what he is. I was going to say he's the real deal. He was the real deal in Japan. We'll see what he does stateside. You know, bigger baseball, no pre-tack. It's gonna be must see TV in spring training. So spring training's coming around. This guy could go up some more if he does well, or like you said, if he gets shelled, maybe not. But listen to some numbers on him real quick. A 1.21 ERA, a 0.88 WHIP, 169 strikeouts, and 164 innings pitched. He's 25, plays for maybe the best offense in baseball. Yamamoto. It's going to be very interesting. After him, he's number 62. After him, a little gap, and then you got Freddie Peralta for your Brewers. Very exciting. Maybe he can stay healthy. Dylan Cease on the bounce back. Kyle Bradish, Bobby Miller looking to take a step forward for the Dodgers. Justin Verlander. Let's see, Kodai Senga. He's going around pick 83. Yuri Perez. And then maybe a little underrated here, Justin Steele. Top 5 in Cy Young in National League last year. Who's standing out to you?
Man, I tell you what, this is a strong list. About 15 or so picks in, so to speak, if this is kind of how the ADP falls. But let me mention this too. We didn't mention, I don't think, Tyler Glasnow and Logan Gilbert before. Their ADPs are slightly ahead of Yamamoto as of right now. Those are two guys. Glasnow, the question is always health. If he's somewhat healthy, he will be incredible in a Dodgers uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Logan Gilbert, same thing, about a strikeout per inning, plays on a great team in Seattle. I expect really good things out of him as well. You mentioned Yamamoto, though. He is the $300 million question. Do I expect him to repeat those numbers that he did in Japan? Absolutely not. Do I expect him to be really, really good? I do. I don't think the Dodgers are throwing $300 million at somebody that they don't expect to be a frontline starter. It may take him a little bit to, I don't know, get comfortable, I guess is the appropriate word.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if maybe he struggles the first couple of, starts. But we'll see. Maybe he comes out of the gates and is incredible. But, I expect what we saw with Kodai Senga with the Mets last year, everything that we are seeing and hearing about Yamamoto, I expect a little bit better version of what we saw out of Kodai Senga last year. And I'll tell you what, Kodai Senga was pretty darn good.
Had a great year.
So, I feel like somewhere around that, we're talking about overall ADP, 50, 60 overall. I feel like that's a fairly good landing spot, really, in reality. Yeah. So I like that. As far as the rest of these guys you mentioned on this subset, dude, I'm not gonna lie. Freddie Peralta, Dylan Cease, Bobby Miller, Justin Verlander, all of those guys are very polarizing to me. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of those guys have big years, and obviously outperform their ADP. But I expect a couple of those guys to not even come remotely close to where they're being drafted at right now. That's what makes fantasy so great. You honestly have no idea until it happens. But I just feel like a couple of those guys are valued very highly. Like Dylan Cease scares me to death. Everything is bad except for the strikeouts.
Whip's not great. 1.42, man.
That's what I mean. Like everything's bad other than strikeouts.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
That's horrid. So I will probably be the first to say, like, I will not have any Dylan Ceases on my teams this year.
Yeah.
But more power to those people who think he's going to regain his form. Justin Verlander.
Max Muncy at pitchers.
Yes, he is. Justin Verlander, though, I tell you what, man, the guy is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I am never going to take that away from him, but he also will probably not be on my fantasy teams this year. Like, when you get to this age and you've gone through multiple major injuries. I just think at some point the gas is going to run out of the tank.
Yeah.
And this could be the year that we see that. I hope for him it doesn't happen, but I just am very skeptical of him going in the top 20 pitchers, honestly.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I could be very wrong on that. But I tell you what, two guys I really like. I like Kodai Senga. I think he's going to be even better this year than he was a year ago because I think he's going to be much more comfortable going into his year 2. And, dude, can we just say Miami Marlins, let Yuri Perez roll.
Yeah.
Let him roll. If the Marlins will take the training wheels off, dude, this guy could be unbelievable.
Yep.
But the problem is he pitches in Miami. They might fall out of contention. And when it matters the most in fantasy playoffs and crunch time, he might be sitting.
Yep.
And that's a problem.
Problem.
Other than that, I love him.
Yep. Dude, it's like one of the biggest things when you come up at 19, he's 20 now, and you're just like, okay. They did the same thing with Strasburg.
Yep.
And I guess it worked. I don't know.
How'd that really work out, though?
Yeah, they signed that big deal, and then it just didn't. The load management thing, I get it. On some level for fantasy, it's just big time Bummersville.
Yeah.
Because this dude's like baby Sandy. I mean, it's unbelievable the crop of people, and we're going to talk about another one here in a moment, but the crop of players that they came into, into finding, it's just unbelievable, man. And they're all kind of growing now, and now they're turning into a little bit like the Brewers. Like, let's get some sticks. Let's get some pop. And, I don't know, dude. We'll see what happens there. Yeah, I'll touch on Justin Steele real quick. Had a really solid year. When you watch him, if you just watch like an inning, you're just like, this guy's probably got like a 3.5, 4 ERA, and you don't understand why it works so well. But for fantasy, man, he'll get the job done. Just over 9, a K per 9, about 9. So the dude
he is way too low on this list.
I don't know what it is. I think a lot of people put Chicago's defense. Give him a lot of credit because of how he pitches, and he doesn't throw 100 miles per hour. But you're right, man. People they be hating on my guy, and I like him.
He's legit.
Yeah, he's. I
watched him pitch a lot last year, and the guy is legit.
Yep. Another guy I might be more excited than anybody on this chunk, I guess, other than Yamamoto, is Bobby Miller, dude. If you talk about a guy that a team like the Dodgers really believe in, 24, throws hard, it's got some nasty secondary stuff. Let's see. I mean, it's going to be time with guys like Kershaw, and then obviously Urias. We can't really talk about him, but he's not going to be there. He's going to have to step up. And I know they made these signings and this, that, and the other, but he is going to be the long-term guy there, especially if they don't re-sign a guy like Walker Buehler. Of course, they're re-signing everybody, and they're signing everybody, so they'll probably bring him back. But, I don't know. It's going to be an exciting group to watch over there in L.A. Moving on down the list, we made it to 27. Wow. Let's see here, ADP of 90. So we're going to keep coming down here. Jesus Luzardo, Joe Musgrove, just let's come back, man. Bounce back year. Let's see it. Walker Buehler coming off of TJ in 2022, so he didn't pitch it all last year. Cole Reagans, maybe signs of KC winning a trade, which is Joe Ryan, Grayson Rodriguez, Shane Bieber, and then Zach Eflin. Dude, anybody stand out here?
Actually, a few of these guys do. I've always been enamored by Jesus Luzardo. If he can just figure out a way to be, and last year was a big step in the right direction. If he can continue to be consistent every start, dude, the guy's got, I don't think I'm going too far on a limb here. The guy's got Cy Young potential.
Yeah.
I know he pitches in Miami, but dude, if you watch him pitch, man, there is not a left-hander in the game that has better 1-2 combination of fastball in the upper 90s and hard breaking ball.
Yeah.
I love what he has to offer. I just want to see him put a full season, consistent starts all the way through, and I just want to see how it turns out. But the potential is there. You mentioned a guy like, we'll see how Musgrove and Buehler coming off of injuries. Both of those guys are proven solid starters at this level.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you mentioned Cole Reagans, dude. I could not believe how good he was once he hit Kansas City last year. Like, I
Yeah.
was absolutely floored at how good he was. I mean, the strikeouts were there, the lack of runs giving
Yeah.
up was there, and I mean, he looked like the total package. So
Yeah.
let's see if that was just lightning in a bottle, or let's
Yeah.
see if he can put a full season like that together. And if he can,
Yeah.
by God, Kansas City might have found something to go with Bobby Witt. So,
Dude, he had a well of a second half. And if you
yes,
were out of your fantasy league and started watching football, dude, you missed it.
yes,
This is why his ADP is under 100. I mean, the dude
yes,
is gross.
yes. So yeah, let's see how he does. Joe Ryan was a total mystery last year. He came out first 2 months of the season looking like a Cy Young Award winner, and then it's like, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if he can find consistency. Same thing with Grayson Rodriguez. I mean, this guy's the quote unquote savior of the pitching staff in Baltimore, but I need
Yeah.
to see more.
Yeah.
So we're kind of in a holding pattern to see what Grayson Rodriguez really is.
Yeah.
And then, dude, Shane Bieber, Justin Bieber, whatever. He did not look right last year. I
Yeah.
don't know what it was, but he didn't look the same. I don't know if he was going through a major injury or what was going on,
Yeah.
but he did not look like the Shane Bieber that I had grown accustomed to seeing over the past several years before that.
Yeah.
Let's see if he looks right again, but he kind of scares me at this point. Last but not least, my boy Zach Eflin. Dude, I said this last year right when the Rays signed him. If the Rays go out and aggressively sign somebody, something is up with them in a good way.
Yeah.
And I think we found out very quickly that the Rays knew what they were doing. And
Mm-hmm.
Zach Eflin had a, lo and behold, career year in Tampa. I
Yep.
expect more of the same this year. I think he's underdrafted as of this ranking right here. And I think he'll have a really good season and he's honestly going to have to be the number one for Tampa
I was just
this
about to
year
ask. Yeah.
due to injury and Glasnow leaving.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's going to be a wild group, dude, because they always seem to pull it together. But it's like, with what?
Yep.
Yeah. Ryan Pepio. Talk about a guy who could get some serious gasoline. We'll talk about him later.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. Very exciting stuff. I love everything you said. I would say out of this group, probably most excited about a guy like Grayson Rodriguez, just because of the second half he had. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Did he get hurt or did they send him back down?
So I think
I
it
can't
was.
remember.
So I know they sent him back down. I think it was performance related, but who knows? It may have been a minor injury as well that they maybe just didn't disclose. But yes, he did get sent down for a brief period of time, and then he was much better.
Came back up, looked okay. So it's like, maybe go down, work on this one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Shane Bieber, he has fallen in drafts big time, man. And so he's a guy that I've been taking chances on in like mock drafts just because it's an elbow thing. That's pretty tough, obviously. Yeah. But he, lost some velocity. But I feel like he feels like a guy who can figure out how to pitch within his limitations, just because he never was a guy who threw like 98, 99 miles per hour, and he was always pretty nasty. But I'm with you, man. I feel like we might be looking at he's only 28, but like later in his career, Corey Kluber, where the speed that is there is gone now, and he's got to learn to figure it out and do his thing. Okay, here's a group of guys, man. Hunter Green, Tanner Bybee, Christian Javier, Sonny Gray, St. Louis new ace, Chris Bassett, Carlos Rodon, and then we'll go Jordan Montgomery. There's a group of guys. Will, what do you like?
It's an interesting list.
You're in like your 120s ADP to like 150s. So
yeah, so I mean, we're basically
10 rounds.
Yeah, if you're in a 10 to 12 team league, which, most leagues are fall in that range, you're basically right in the heart of the draft here, right? So, here's the thing. I mean, I've used this phrase kind of throughout our breakdown series here, but what flavor of ice cream do you want? Do you want a young up and coming guy that has insane potential but also has a super low floor? Or do you want a proven guy who may not have the upside and the strikeout potential, but you want somebody who's not going to kill you potentially in ERA, whip, those kind of things? I
Hmm.
think this is kind of the summary of this list. I think Hunter Green, if he ever figures it out,
Yeah.
he could easily be a top 5, top 10 overall starting pitcher
Hmm.
minimum. The talent is there. The guy throws 103.
Yeah.
He's got a decent breaking ball. Hopefully, he can continue to develop some off speed stuff to get even better. But he also has a floor that's like super low. I mean, he could go out and give up 10 runs in a game, especially
Yeah.
in that ballpark, and it wouldn't be shocking. So, guys like that kind of scare me a little bit, but the upside is tantalizing.
Hmm.
What Christian Javier are we going to get? I mean, this is a guy who I thought last year was going to have his absolute coming out party after that postseason he had
Hmm.
2 years ago, and it just wasn't there. Um, so let's see if he can put a regular season together again.
Yeah.
Um, the stuff is there. It's just a matter of him going out and doing it and being consistent every start.
Hmm.
But he's interesting in the middle rounds for sure. Um, and then the veterans like Sonny Gray, who's the ace of the Cardinal staff now, Chris Bassett, Jordan Montgomery. Those are three guys that I think you can draft and you pretty much know, hey, I'm not really getting a guy who's got top 10 potential, but I am getting guys with very solid floors. I pretty much know what I'm going to get, start in, start out. And that's valuable. Like I wouldn't want those guys as my first or second best pitchers,
Yeah.
but hey, if they're on the board and I'm able to get them as my third or fourth starter, then I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. I'm with you. And that's kind of, I'm glad you said that. That's kind of what you're looking at, I guess, at this point. You're probably looking at your third guy if you did it right. I mean, if you're trying to go like super offensive heavy. But yeah, if you can get a guy like a Bassett, that's a guy who is, I mean, it's going to give you a lot of innings and can give you some strikeouts as well. And he'll give you wins. So, yeah, it's all about kind of perspective and where we're looking. Carlos Rendon, that's gonna be an interesting one. I'm looking at this list like which one of these does not belong. That dude had an absolute tough year last year. His first year with the Yankees, a 6.85 ERA, 1.45 WHIP, and then he had 64 Ks and 64 and a third innings. I think Yankees fans are out there drafting early in December and January because why is his ADP so high? I mean, obviously, you can look at the back of the baseball card and say this dude has Cy Young caliber stuff, but my goodness gracious, he got rocked his first year in New York. So we'll see what happens with a guy like that. Other than that, in this list, I don't know. I like Tanner Bybee. I think he showed us a lot last year at 2.98 ERA. That'll play all dilly dally day, Will. I'm very excited about what he could do.
Yeah.
But the problem is, what are the Guardians going to do offensively, man?
Mm-hmm.
How much win potential really is there? But yeah, if you get this guy as like a third, I think where you get in a trap is if you're this is like your number 2 starter,
Yes.
then you could really be in trouble. And you can't not dig yourself out of it, but you're gonna have to
It's
depend
hard.
on correct. You have to take a little bit of risk later in the draft. Some stuff is gonna have to pan out. Let's keep moving on here, buddy. Ooh, new faces, new places. What about Michael King going from New York to San Diego for some guy named Juan Soto? Gavin Williams, he was a young pup last year for the Guardians, 24 years old, had a great year. Jose Barrios, back from the dead. He proved he can still throw a baseball.
Yep.
Miro Kelly, Shane Boss had TJ in 2022. He should be ready to start the year. Did I
Should be.
Should be. Okay, if
Yep.
everything keeps progressing. Then you got
Yep.
you, Darvish. What can we get from you? Chris Sale, newest Atlanta guy, and then Mitch Keller. Who gets you excited?
This is a really interesting list. Michael King showed a lot of promise in New York. He's going to be given full runway, it looks like, in San Diego. So let's see. Let's see what he can do. He started in the bullpen and now it's getting stretched out, and it actually looks like it might work out. So he's interesting to me. Gavin Williams, I know the Guardians are really high on him. Let's see if he can put a full season together. But he's got a lot of promise for sure. Big time prospect in their system, and now he's up for good, it looks like. Veterans like Merrill Kelly, Jose Barrios, those guys had great years last year. Can they keep going? These are guys, again, don't pick them as your first or second starter. But if you're getting these guys as your third or fourth guys, man, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Shane Baz, man, he's a guy that I really want to see pitch in spring training. This is a guy, I mean, I'm a big Rays fan that everybody knows, but this is a guy that the Rays have been so high on for a number of years.
Yeah.
He struggled with a little bit of injuries, had a major, obviously, Tommy John just over about a year and a half ago, but this is a guy that's got legit number one stuff. If he looks good in spring training, he is going to rocket up some draft boards. I can assure you that. So he's a guy to really keep your eye on, how he looks coming off of the injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And then rounding out the list, man, Darvish was disappointing last year. He just didn't look like himself.
Yeah.
Same with Chris Sale. Like, is he going to be able to stay healthy? And chances are not great.
Yeah.
that the answer is yes, but I'm rooting for him. But I tell you what, man, the guy, I know he pitches for the Pirates, but man, there were times during last season where Mitch Keller, there were certain periods of time last year, not full season,
yeah,
but certain periods where Mitch Keller looked like a top 10 starting pitcher in all of baseball.
Oh yeah,
and
remember their April, dude? Pittsburgh's April was like crazy. Remember they re-signed Brian Reynolds, and it was like it's all Pirates, baby. And then
so can Mitch Keller? Can he be consistent?
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's a guy that I would very much be willing to take a shot on at this stage for sure.
100%, man. Yeah, he's 27 coming into his prime. ERA, and WHIP kind of landed in a little bit of a murky place, 4.21 and 1.25. But dude, 210 Ks in 194 innings. That'll work.
Yep.
That'll work. And you got to say, hey, just like you said, it's obviously in there. We saw at the beginning of last year. How long can he do this? He's definitely, dude. I mean, of this group, other than Merrill Kelly, he's probably who I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
I think they had the highest floor, those two.
Yeah.
Michael King will be interesting because he had like a really great last 8 starts with the Yankees. Before that, they were kind of using long man in the bullpen. And I mean, all signs, I don't know who's going to pick up the ball that's rolled out there in the mound in San Diego, but all signs point to Michael King getting a shot at being part of this rotation. So that'll be a lot of fun to watch. Probably out on Darvish. He kind of had like a Ty France year. Like coming into last year, I was like, okay, you know what you're going to get.
Right.
And it's going to be above average. Well, last year was pretty below average. So, had an incredible career. Probably a Hall of Famer. I mean, I have to look at the numbers. He's really good. Kind of sneaky underrated, man. I mean, he's I think he was runner-up Cy Young twice. But anyway, Chris Sale, miss you, buddy. Hope you can stay healthy. Good luck in Atlanta. Hey, we got like 11 more names. Okay, so we're gonna split them in half and then get on out of here. Will Hunter Brown, Max Scherzer, Braxton Garrett, Brian Wu, Edward Rodriguez, Eduardo. His friends call him Edward. Bailey Ober, Nathan Eovaldi. That's not half, but it'll work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it's not half of 12. It'll be okay, Will. What do you like about that group?
You know what?
We're like
These are guys.
ADP 180 to 200 if you're
You know,
keeping score at home.
I was just about to say, I mean, this is the point in the draft where you're essentially just drafting for hoping you hit on something, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm kind of out at this point on Max Scherzer. I just don't know if the guy can stay healthy enough for a full year anymore based on just what I've seen these past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But the guys that I like several. I like, Hunter Brown, I know has a lot of potential, but I didn't love what I saw in a lot of starts last year for him. So
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if he can kind of turn the corner and make some positive strides this year. But I tell you what, I really, really like guys like Braxton Garrett. I think he's just going to be a super solid starter in Miami basically all year long. Um, I think Erod in Arizona is a great fit. I think
Mm-hmm.
he's going to have a really solid year in Arizona. Very underrated pitcher, in my opinion, at this point in his career.
Yeah.
Um, Bailey Ober, he is. I know he plays in Minnesota, and I like to rag on the Twins,
Yeah.
but man, he's good.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a guy that's hard to square up. Gets about a strikeout per 9 innings. And there's a lot to like there. If he's one of your, fifth, sixth starter, man, that's pretty dang good in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then Nate Eovaldi, if the guy can stay healthy, I think he's proven that he's a very, very solid pitcher. Seems to love it in Texas, and
Mm-hmm.
Texas, I think, loves him. So
Mm-hmm.
he's a good spot, very good value at this point in the draft too.
Yeah. I think if it's like a postseason draft, he's probably like the first
Yeah,
pitcher off the board. I mean, this dude
yeah.
is different in
Other than
October.
Zach Wheeler.
Zach Wheeler, yeah, Zach Greinke. He didn't make the list, but I bet he'll sign with like the Pirates and be there. I don't know what he's gonna do. We'll keep you posted, guys. Stay tuned in. Yeah, this is a dude. When you hit this point in the draft, your fantasy baseball kind of savvy needs to kick in, right? Because you need to be able to look at your team that you've already put together and say, okay, do I need like a high floor guy here, or can I swing for the fences and can I see if I can get like a Brian Wu? That would be my decision. I think if I'm looking at my team, I'd either go Brian Wu or a guy like Eduardo Rodriguez, just because I think one of them could be absolutely great. He's going to be he's going to get some run in Seattle. He's a pretty highly touted prospect, and then the other guy, Erod, like you said, just got paid 4 years, up to $100 million to be a D back. So yeah, okay. So you're fighting for second place in that division, but doesn't mean he could still be great. Obviously, go Sox. I haven't said that once this episode, but former Red Sox legend threw his glove down in the lone loss in the 2018 World Series after Yasiel Puig hit that home run. I was like, I
Yeah.
used to do that when I played Little League. Yeah, he does it. That's cool. Yeah, it's the interesting part. Let's knock out the rest of this list, Will. What do you say?
Let's do
Um,
it.
Brandon Pfaadt, Bryce Miller, Tristan McKenzie, Charlie Morton, Ryan Pepio. Had to put him on here. Could have stopped at 60, but I love him so much because I think with where he's going, he's probably the most exciting player on this entire list, Will. What do you like, bud?
Yeah, why not take a shot, man? I mean, as I said earlier with Zach Eflin, if the Rays really, really want somebody via free agency or via trade, they usually are on to something. So, yes, if you were wanting to take a late round flyer on somebody that maybe you've never heard of before, Ryan Pepio is probably as good as anybody. So yeah, I'm with you. Um, as far as the other guys on this list, I think here's the thing: if Brandon Pfaadt can show us more of what we saw in the postseason, dude, he's got a shot to be really good.
Yeah.
So let's see. He's definitely worth taking a shot. Same with Bryce Miller. I think he's got a lot of potential. We'll see if he can put a full season together. Tristan McKenzie was kind of hurt most of the year last year. Let's see if he can bounce back, but he's
Mm-hmm.
interesting at this spot. And
Mm-hmm.
then Charlie Morton, kind of same thing. Had some injuries, getting up there in age. Can he figure out a way to stay healthy throughout the year? It's going to be tough, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting list.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. We got 4 people, 26 and younger, and then one 40-year-old, Charlie Morton. Listen, I appreciate you, Charlie. He was on my team last year. I think the last 2 years I had Charlie Morton. I don't know. In our home league, he is he's pretty dependable. But at this point, I don't know what else he's got in the tank. If I'm drafting at this point, I'm going for one of these younger guys. And I personally believe, we were talking about it earlier, Pepio is going to get some serious gasoline moving up ADP ranks, because he is nasty. And then, let's see what he does with the Rays. They throw their pixie dust, and it's greatness. Tristan Sticks McKenzie, dude, that's a guy I'd be interested in. But, coming off a partially torn UCL, let's see what it looks like. Let's see what he looks like in spring training. And then you have a team like the Guardians, who have all this youth in their pitching staff. Are they, how many bullets are they going to really let this guy throw? It's good for the baseball side of things, but for fantasy, he might lose a little value there for me. But otherwise, man, what a list, Will. I think we knocked it out, baby. Here's the deal. This is it's essentially like your entire offense. We've made it through all the offensive positions, and you look at that, and that's part of your team, and that's great. Now we switch to pitching, and when you look at a starting rotation, to look at this assortment of names and all the different ways you can piece it together, pretty interesting, huh?
That's for sure. I mean, the thing is pitching is so deep, but starting pitching is the most unpredictable position.
Man.
Position in all of fantasy baseball. Every year you see guys who are either undrafted or drafted in the late middle rounds that end up being top 10 guys. And vice versa. You see guys who are drafted in the top 10 of all starting pitchers, and they're like, they shouldn't have even been drafted based on the year they have. So that's the nature of the beast with this position. Having said that, I mean, kind of my overall strategy no matter what kind of league I'm in, whether it's head-to-head, category, roto, points, whatever, I always want to try to get at least 2 studs. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, since we've only got, 6 blue chippers, that I'm going to get 2 of those guys. But it does mean that I'm going to probably try to get one of those guys and one of the other guys in the very next tier below, where I've got 2 guys that, no matter what week we're in, my team's doing overall, I feel good about these guys going out and putting a great game together. So I always want a minimum of 2 studs on my roster. And then I'm just trying to really round it out with solid guys, preferably guys that get a lot of strikeouts, because in fantasy, in most leagues, that usually counts for a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really kind of my philosophy. And especially like in the middle to late rounds, I really look at guys. I don't pay as much attention to ERA as I do WHIP. So if you can get guys that are around a 1.0 or a 1.1 WHIP or so in the mid to late rounds, usually you're getting a pretty quality staff that you're putting together, especially with guys that get some strikeouts. So that's really my overall philosophy, just trying to get 2 studs, and then just throughout the round, wherever I can find value, that's usually when I kind of pick and choose when to pick a pitcher.
Yeah. Listen, guys, that's worth the price of admission, what he just said. And it's free. It's a podcast. You can download it anywhere you get your podcast. That's one of the things. I've only been doing this a few years. Will, on the other hand, what number year are you on, William?
I've lost count. I think it's I think we're going on year 14 or 15.
See, he'd have to take at least one of his shoes off, okay, to finish counting. That's one of the things he taught me, before I went into my first draft, and he mentioned the WHIP thing and how you can look at that one stat and it can paint a pretty good picture. It obviously doesn't paint the whole picture, but it paints a pretty good picture of how effective this pitcher is going to be for fantasy. So yeah, dude, pitching guru, man, you always find a way to piece together a really solid staff through the draft or through the waiver wire. But yeah, man, it's going to be a very interesting year. I'm excited I feel like I'm going to attack pitching a little bit different this year.
Yeah.
I was pretty lax on it last year as far as I went pretty offensive heavy, and I'll probably still have an offensive lean, but I do feel the importance of grabbing one of these top guys because like we talked about how volatile it is and how
Yep.
it really felt like at times there was like one guy that you could depend on 100% of the time. That was Garrett Cole. The
Yep.
rest of the guys would get ripped from time to time. And so it'll be fun, guys. We want to know about how your rotations are going, guys. Reach out to us on Twitter at BTH_Cody and at Will Sism. I'd pitch your questions to Will, but he'll probably text me and let me know. But he's the guy with answers. Will, anything before we get on out of here?
I don't think so. We're going to close out the breakdown series with relievers next.
That's right.
And then we're going to dive into some really fun stuff as we're only about just over a month away from spring training. So
it's unbelievable.
Exciting times. We've got a lot of fun stuff on the way. So looking forward to it.
It's going to be great, guys. Hey, if you made it to this point in the episode, we really appreciate you. We love you. Check out the YouTube channel, guys. Leave a comment. Hit the little thumbs up button. That would be cool. It's called Bringing the Heat. I know if you found this, you're probably like, what's the name? It's the same one. It is. It's identical. It's going to be great. Guys, we appreciate you. But until next time, thanks for listening to episode 66 of Bringing the Heat.